So hey everybody, how's it going? Mork here. This is gonna be like the accuracy tier list for Paramod. So with Vital Strike, it costs 3 offensive points, it's like a special attack, and gives you plus 15% crit chance. And the Mastery gives you instead plus 30% crit chance. So this one, I feel like Vital Strike, you only get as means. Usually as a means to get to the Vital Strike Mastery. I don't really see henchmen taking the skill. If there was like any henchman that I would consider picking this up on, it would be something Skaven related, because Skaven can kind of you can make them quite critful, I guess. So this skill I'm just going to put into, I mean, I guess it's just kind of okay, it just kind of exists. Yeah, but Vital Strike is significantly better. I think this is just a thing for crit builds in general, that like heroes are much better at doing like crit damage, because they can like take mastery skills of their crit skills, right? So like plus 30% crit chance is like a significant amount. And I think like especially I don't think this is as good. I guess if I was like ranking every single warband at the same time, I guess I would just kind of put this to good. But I think like with Skaven and how consistent you can make critting with Vital Strike, how consistently you can crit people, I'm gonna put this skill into really good. So Vital Shot. So there's quite like a difference between Vital Strike and Vital Shot. So Vital Shot gives you, like the Unmastered version gives you plus 15% crit chance on your special shot, and the Master gives you plus 30% crit chance. So there's like quite a difference between like melee crits and range crits, and it's mostly because it is like the range crits are not as supported as like melee crits. I guess the best way to explain it would be like Skaven skills, right? Because Skaven skills, you can get plus 30% crit chance from Skaven skills, and those are all like melee. You don't really have that for the Vital Shot. I kind of just have the Sharpshooter, but Sharpshooter also just, it takes time before it gets going. So I think overall, like the Unmastered version is kind of bad, and the Mastery, I think it's, I don't know if it's good. I think it's at least like definitely not bad. Maybe like at the top of the not bad. You can definitely make it work, but you're gonna get like more consistent crits overall from melee attacks, in my opinion. Ooh, so that's an interesting one. We have a feint. So feint is a 6 to 12 accuracy cost skill, and it basically gives you what does it give you? Yeah, it basically puts a debuff on an enemy, and they have a minus 10% chance to hit you. This is like a difference from like the vanilla. I think the skill was basically reworked, and this lasts for 2 turns, and the mastery lasts for 3 rounds. So about the basic version of the skill, it's actually really good. It's actually kind of amazing. Like I would consider like putting it between insane and really good. It's like either at the bottom of insane or like at the top of really good. And why it's so freaking good is it's really great for melee resistance tanks, and not just like the heroes and stuff, but also for like the henchmen, right? When you are melee resistance tanking somebody, you are usually tanking just one unit. So yeah. So, and the skill is also like active skill, right? Like you have like a skill like shield specialist, right? And the shield specialist gives you plus 5% melee resistance. Like this active skill gives minus 10% hit chance to the enemy, which is basically kind of like plus 10% melee resistance for your guy. So I think this skill is really, really good. It's amazing on like defensive henchmen, and I think it's also amazing on like these really defensive heroes. Okay. Worth noting, feint does not need to hit because it is a feint, but I do think that getting it parried or sidestep does make it not apply the debuff. Really? Parried or dodged, that is. I think that's not the case, but I'm not sure entirely. But yeah, that is also like another great thing about feint. It's that you don't actually have to hit the target. So I used to think that like you needed to hit feint in order to apply the debuff, but you actually don't. So it's like it went even like higher in my tier list, I guess, and in my opinion. Okay. As for the mastery, yeah, the master gives actually plus 15%. I mean minus 15% hit chance for the enemy, and instead it lasts 3 rounds. So because like feint is so easy to apply, you don't really care. Like you are usually just able to reapply it every single round, so you don't really care about the round duration. And like paying four additional points just to get the mastery, I don't think it's worth it. I guess there's like some silver lining for the mastery, and that is that you can stack it with the base skill, right? And that can be relevant, but in that case, like, just how many melee resistance tanks do you want to bring to a fight? Mm. So overall, I think I have just kind of a hard time picking the skill overall. I don't think it's exactly bad. Hmm. I don't think it's like at the same level as a vital shot. Um, I'm gonna kind of like put this at the top of kinda bad, just because I think it can be like a little bit of a trap, and also like it's much easier getting your character to 6 accuracy rather than getting them up to 12 accuracy. So I think that's why I'm just gonna like put this into this kinda bad. But I don't think it's exactly bad. It's definitely usable. Is all right. Precise strike. So the base version basically gives you plus 10% hit chance and piercing, 10% piercing to parry and dodge when you go for the special attack. And the mastery gives you plus 30% hit chance, plus 30% dodge, piercing, and plus 30% parry, piercing. So the base skill, I think it just kind of sucks overall. Like the 10% hit chance is not really enough, and like the 10% dodge piercing and parry piercing is not really worth it. If you want to pierce parry, I think you're just better off like taking something like a strong blow. if you want to hit your enemy, I think you're just better off taking something like an insult. I just don't think the skill really does much. So I think it's just kind of bad, to be honest. Yeah. As for the mastery is actually much, much better. And I kind of like picking this up on Daredevil characters. Especially like Daredevil, what do you call it? Daredevil impressives. I think that's really, really good because it not only gives you like the +% hit chance, but I mean it gives you the dodge piercing is what I'm saying. It's really good in that sense. But also like Serenity, right? Like Serenity tanks are, in my opinion, incredibly powerful, and they can be like incredibly hard to hit for your impressives. Um, so like this sort of a skill works really well as a counter to Serenity tanks. Like it's a really huge deal if you manage to like up your hit chance from like 20% to like 50%, right? But you get less attacks, but still I think it's worth it. Or like if you have a 40% chance to hit and you up it to 70% chance to hit, yeah? And you're not only doing that, you're also like piercing their sidestep while attacking. Yeah, and also like there was like this thing when we talked about Daredevil that you may face like certain characters which have like 160% dodge. Well, this like contributes in beating those dodgy characters. So I think the skill is it's either really good or just good. Hmm. I think I'm just gonna like put this at the top of good. I think this is genuinely a good skill. Yeah. I also kind of just like picking this skill on a Daredevil ogre, right? And that your ogre has naturally like a really high strength, so that's like 40% parry piercing. Then you have this skill, which is a weak spot, and that gives you like 30% additional parry piercing, so that's like 70% parry piercing. And with this skill, you have 100% parry piercing. It's like it's not quite like strong blow. I mean, strong blow is gonna be like obviously better at piercing parry, but this also beats that dodge and those melee resistance tanks, so it's more flexible. Like the flexibility that you're also able to beat parry is nice for the skill. Hey, yeah, how's it going? Armor break. That's a funky skill. So armor break, it goes 9 accuracy to 15 accuracy. So armor break, it's like a debuff, and it reduces enemies' armor by minus 10%, and the mastery reduces enemies' armor by minus 20%. I think like the base one. I think the base one is just kind of good. I mean, I think it's just always good, like being able to be able to pierce armor, especially if your builds don't have some kind of way to bypass armor. Like if you're running like a normal build, which doesn't have a way of like applying poison or magic or some kind of other thing. Like armor break is gonna be really nice against those like heavy armor builds, right? And also, this may also help you to support your archers, so that your archers also deal more damage. It also costs like 9 accuracy, so it's not like completely impossible to get into. For some characters, yes, but I'm just gonna kind of like put this to the good. As for the mastery, so mastery gives minus 20% armor for 3 rounds. Um, so the requirement for you to get this skill is 15 accuracy, and in that case, you're kind of like getting quite a bit of critical strike chance as well, and that is also like an alternative for you of beating armor. Um, I think the skill is just kind of like, I want to say that it's really good because like applying 20% armor break is can be like very significant, but there is a problem that a lot of characters just they have a hard time going for this skill, and it's because it costs that 15 accuracy, and like not a lot of characters are able to invest like so many skill points simultaneously into this and into weapon skill, because if you want to like if you want to apply a debuff, you also want to increase your weapon skill so that you have a higher hit chance that you actually apply your debuff. And I guess if I'm saying it like that, I'm just gonna probably just put this at the top of good, because the requirement is it can be rough for some characters to get into, to be honest. I think like some of the best users of the Master Armor Break is probably going to be Champion, because Champion has got like 1 million martial skill points. Martial skill points? Yeah, I think it's like martial points, whatever. And yeah, they are easily able to get like a lot of weapon skill while simultaneously they are able to get to that 15 accuracy for the skill. Also, this could be used by impressives so that they increase their damage. But if I'm gonna be using like such a skill on an impressive, in that case, I would probably think of picking up also mastered adrenaline rush, so that you don't lose one of your attacks when your impressive is attacking. So the next one is headshot. It's like 9 accuracy, and if you manage to hit the target, well, with a minus 40% range hit chance, if you manage to hit the target may get stunned if they fail the stun check. So I've already talked about how overpower is really freaking bad because it goes through several through several checks in order to apply the stun. A headshot is significantly better, but it still kind of has like the same problems. It costs 4 offensive points. You have minus 40% chance to hit, and yeah, if you manage, even if you manage to hit your target still may be able to pass the stun check. Like you may be able to, you are definitely able to make like some kind of builds who have an easy time hitting an enemy, like for example from like an elevated position with like Rune of Flight, I believe it's called. It gives you plus 20% higher hit chance. But still, I think it's just kind of bad, to be honest. So I think I'm just gonna put this at a bad. I think you're definitely not using this on. You're definitely not using it on anyone, to be honest. I don't think you should be using it. I think the skill is just a trap, frankly speaking. But mastery is actually pretty decent. Because you have only minus 10% hit chance, right? The only problem that the mastery might have is that some like archers, if you wanna like play this kind of a supportive style of archer, you would also like to get 20 ballistic skill so that you're able to actually hit your target. Like even if you're in my opinion, even if you're like taking this or this skill, I think you always just want to have a 20 ballistic skill. I don't think it's worth it otherwise, in my opinion. Yeah, and like not every character has like this. Like marksman is like a good example of this because marksman has an easy time getting to 15 accuracy while still able to get like to 20 ballistic skill. So like for somebody like marksman, I think the skill is pretty good. You may even like support it. I believe Paramod added like a skill, a skill. Paramod added like an enchantment, which gives on every attack minus 10%, minus stun resist. So I think it can be kind of like paired up with that enchantment to make the stunning more consistent. I think it's definitely usable. Um, hmm. I'm not sure honestly if you're better off like going for like a vital shot or if you're better off going for a headshot if you're trying to stun the target. Um, because here you're just kind of playing RNG casino, right? And here you're also kind of playing RNG casino, but I think the odds are more in your favor. I think this is more like for damage archers, and this is more like for support archers. So yeah. Okay, so let's move on to passive skills. So we have quick incision. We have the unmastered version. Basically, whenever you hit an enemy with a melee attack, it applies in Paramod. In Paramod, it applies like a debuff, which makes it it reduces enemies' range resistance by 3, and this lasts for 2 rounds. So if you like attack with like your henchman twice or thrice, you are able to apply like minus 6% range resistance or like minus 9% range resistance. I think it's kind of like a funky skill. I kind of like it. I like the design of it, you know. I don't know if I would use it, to be honest, because Kidney Strike exists. And Kidney Strike applies just right away 20%, minus 20% range resistance. So I think if you're like making some kind of like supportive henchman for your range units, I think you're just better off using you're just kind of better off using Kidney Strike, in my opinion. With that said, I don't think it's like a bad choice. I think it's just kind of like okay, I guess. The same kind of thing applies for the quick incision mastery, but this one lasts for 3 rounds and it applies minus 6% range resistance. Yeah. This is kind of like the same thing in my opinion. I think you're just kind of better off taking something like a Kidney Strike, in my opinion. With that said, I don't think it's bad. Like, if you attack somebody 5 times, you're gonna apply minus 30% range resistance. I suppose there's like also an argument that you can stack this with Kidney Strike. But like, how much piercing do you really need? Of like the range resistance, I'm not really sure. So I think this just kind of also ends up being just kind of okay. I guess so. Break defenses. So break defenses is like much more interesting in my opinion. It's like a reverse quick incision in Paramod. Break defenses basically applies minus with your ranged attacks, it applies -3% melee resistance, and the mastery applies -6% melee resistance. And the base one for 2 rounds, the mastery for 3 rounds. I think the skill is actually like significantly better than the quick incision. I thought a lot about like using it because also like this costs like 3 to 9 accuracy to go for this, right? So it's like much better, and there is no, I believe there is no like a special range attack equivalent to like applying minus melee resistance. So I think this skill can be like good on like a henchman who is supposed to like hit you, like a kind of like a supportive henchman. Like I can imagine, I mean, like a henchman or like a hero that is using just the basic attacks. But with those basic attacks, they apply some kind of a debuff, you know? Like, for example, Dismay runes or something like that. Or like they give minus offensive points whenever they hit you. Or like they use that rune which has like a 30% chance to break any stance, you know? I think I can see that being used in this way, and this could be quite nice. So I think I'm just gonna like put this into not bad category in my opinion. And this one can be also like really significant. I mean, when you think about it, like imagine that you're like preparing some kind of target for the impressive to kill. I think a good example would be a red ogre, because red ogre kind of like, imagine like a crit red ogre. You're gonna be investing most of your points into accuracy, so you're not gonna have as much hit chance. So like this kind of a supportive skill could be nice for that red ogre, in my opinion, to just make him like more consistent at hitting the target. And like if you manage to hit 5 times a target, it's gonna have -30% melee resistance. So that's kind of a big deal. And this could also beat melee resistance tanks. If the melee resistance tank never invested into, what do you call it? Range resistance, right? So I think this also kind of goes into not bad. I think it's also like definitely usable in my opinion. Um, hmm. This one's called, what was it? Was it like lethality? No. Fatality? I'll have to double check. I think it's fatality. Yeah, it is fatality. Fatality? Oh yeah, fatality, like Mortal Kombat. So fatality. After you hit your melee attack, you get +5% crit chance. And after you hit with the mastery for 2 rounds, this one, and with the mastery it's +10% crit chance, and it's for 3 rounds. I mean, if you're playing some kind of a crit build, you're probably also gonna want like this skill. Ideally, you would like to have some kind of a situation where you are able to crit your enemy on your first attack right away. But this only like starts working after your first attack, and if you hit. I definitely wouldn't use it on a henchman. I guess I wouldn't use it on a henchman. I'm not sure if I would use it on a henchman. I could maybe like see this also being used maybe on some heroes or like some Skaven, you know, who have already used like a lot of their points on other critical strike chance skills, but this one would be like something which would be like additional for crits. Um, I don't know. I think it's not bad in my opinion. Right? The mastery, I think the mastery is actually much better. So I think the skill is especially nice for like the cult heroes because they have blood offering, and blood offering kind of works already in the same way. So that like if you hit your target, you get plus 20% melee damage and plus 10% crit chance, right? So like if you're trying to get like crit chance in this way, fatality goes like really well with it as well, right? Because instead you get plus 20% crit chance, and I think it works really nicely. Um, so I think I'm just gonna like put this into good, in my opinion. Oh, I think this one is called Underdog. Basically, if you're surrounded, you get surrounded, but if there are at least like two people targeting you in melee range, they are engaged with you in combat, at least two people, you get plus 10% crit chance. And the master gives you plus 20% crit chance instead. Um, so overall, I just think Underdog is kind of bad because it kind of relies on enemy interacting with you. um, yeah, because you very often might end up in just like a sort of a situation where you don't even get to use the skill whatsoever. So I think it's just kind of a waste of a skill slot. I think I would much rather be using fatality, right? I think that's gonna be like more consistent overall, in my opinion, because you can also use it in like 1v1s. Like you could, Para was talking about that you could use it on like a witch hunter leader. Um, there's also like the argument that you could use this on like impressives, you know, if like the enemy is trying to go after your impressive, and then you just basically kill the enemy because it tried to engage your impressive. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to remember like how often this happens that like somebody tries to kill your impressive, and usually there's like no fighting back with your impressive. Um, usually. Um, I could maybe like see the skill being usable. Okay, I think like the unmastered version is kind of usable, but I think overall it's just kind of bad. And I think like the mastery version is just worse. Uh, because it costs those 4 additional skill points, and like what do you get? You get like a potential 10% higher crit chance, maybe. If the enemy decides to like go like surround you or something. I don't think this is good. I can see like don't get me wrong, I think like counterattacking an enemy and like critting them and stunning them is like amazing. I just you're kind of like on your back foot rather than being uh rather than you like controlling the situation, I guess would be a way to put it. Oh, also like another thing, if like let's say you put this on like a crit red ogre, right? You're gonna have, I think you're gonna have like an easy time like killing one target, and once it's dead, um, you're not gonna have this benefit anymore. So I don't think it's like good overall, in my opinion. Like maybe I would I think counter blow might be better, but I don't know. I think counter blow is also just kind of iffy in general. Okay, let's just continue and let's get to the deep wounds. So deep wounds, like the unmastered version, gives you plus 20% crit damage, and the master version gives you plus 60% crit damage. So this is like this is a really good skill for crit builds. I don't think, I'm not sure if this skill existed. I mean, if it would be like worth investing into crit if this skill didn't exist. Like this damage modifier is really huge, right? Because normally, imagine that you have like 20 accuracy. In that case, your crit damage modifier is just plus 20% damage, but plus 20% damage that is also able to pierce armor, right? If you have the skill, you get a total of plus 80% whenever you crit. And that's a really huge number, right? Um, and I use this a lot on like the crit Skaven. And yeah, you can also just combine it with like the Carnage runes. And Carnage runes are gonna give you additional plus 60% crit damage. So you're gonna have like a total of 140% crit damage. And that's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage that is able to pierce armor, and that might also possibly stun the target. And then if you manage to stun the target, you're gonna have a guaranteed melee attack hit and plus 20% crit chance as well. So wow, that's why I kind of like rated Vital Strike really highly because of that reason. Yeah. So this one, I think it's like, whoopsie daisy. I put like the skill. There you are. So this one, I think it's like still good. Like 20% crit damage is still nice. I think it's like good, you know? And I think the mastery is like really good. Like it makes crits worth it. Okay, and the last skill that we have is basically weak spot, and that gives you 10% dodge and parry piercing, like the basic version. And the master gives you plus 30 and plus 30% dodge and parry piercing. And the requirement for the skill is 9 to 15 accuracy. So let's just start with like the basic version. I don't think it's bad. I think it's definitely like usable. It can help with like, I can see this being used on, for example, like spear henchmen, right? Yeah, because like spear gives you already like 35% dodge piercing, and it also gives you like plus 24%. I think it's 24%. Parry piercing. And yeah, like adding like 10% to that dodge is quite nice, right? And this also has like the 9 accuracy cost. So in that case, like the 9 accuracy is gonna give you additional 18% dodge piercing. So imagine that you have a character who has this skill, then this character also has let's say 10 accuracy, so that's like 30% dodge piercing, and let's say that they have a spear, so that's 65% dodge piercing. And the dodgy characters usually are at like 120% dodge, in my opinion. It could be like 145. I don't know. But I think it's like significant enough. And it's also like nice for like parry piercing. So I think it's not bad, honestly. Like I could also maybe see this being used on heroes who do not have enough accuracy points, but still kind of like maybe they are like partial daredevil users or something. As for the mastery, It's significantly better. This is especially used with Daredevil users. And yeah. Oh, maybe like also like additional thing, this could be also used with like Strongbow, and Strongbow gives you already like plus 30%. So you can also become like a pretty good at dealing with like parry and piercing that with a spear. But coming back to the mastery, um, yeah, like if you're going for like a Daredevil build, you also like automatically kind of want to pick a weak spot as well, right? Because this gives you like plus 30% dodge piercing, and if you have 15 accuracy, it's going to be a total of 60% dodge piercing. If you combine it with like and this would be like your base, like this 60% dodge piercing for fighting heavy armor units. If you were fighting something like, let's say, dodge builds, you would be swapping to daggers, and each dagger gives you plus 15% dodge piercing, and you can also like make them like daggers of speed, and this rune gives you plus 10% dodge piercing. So if you are like facing with a Daredevil build something dodgy, you can just swap to these daggers, and you will have, together with this skill and that 15 accuracy, you're gonna have 110% dodge piercing, right? And if that is still not enough, you can combine it with the precise strike, and you're gonna have 140% dodge piercing. So, I think I believe I put like I think I put in my strength tier list Daredevil in just the good category. I think I may have done that. Also, just to make it clear, I think you should only go for the skill if you have a Daredevil. I don't think it's worth it otherwise, in my opinion. So, assuming that you do have a Daredevil and the skill, I think it ends up being like really good for you, this skill, and you're gonna be satisfied with it. So yeah, I think that's it for the accuracy tier list.